Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that's uncomfortable, but necessary. What does it say about a man who's married, but still flirting with other women? Now, before we jump to conclusions, let's get something straight. Flirting, on the surface, might seem harmless. A compliment here, a playful message there. Maybe he tells you, "I'm just being friendly," or "You're reading too much into it." But ladies and gentlemen, when a man has made a vow, flirting isn't friendly. It's not innocent. It's a quiet betrayal dressed up in charm. It's easy to mistake his attention for flattery. After all, who doesn't enjoy feeling seen, desired, or chosen? But here's what I want you to remember. A man who flirts while married isn't showing you how special you are. He's showing you how careless he is. With hearts, with boundaries, and with commitment. You might be wondering, but why? If he's committed, why is he still seeking attention elsewhere? Because flirting isn't about you. It's about him. It's about a man who needs constant external validation. Flirting isn't always what it seems. On the surface, it can look playful, harmless, or even charming. But when someone is married, that same behavior takes on a very different meaning. It becomes a crack in the foundation of trust, a quiet breach of the emotional commitment that a marriage is built on. When a man flirts while he's in a committed relationship, especially a marriage, it's not just casual or light-hearted. It's a signal of something deeper, something that chips away at the very fabric of loyalty and connection. People like to minimize flirting, especially in today's world where emotional lines are constantly blurred. We tell ourselves, it's not physical, or it's just a compliment. And that's exactly the danger, because it gives permission to stay in denial. But for the partner on the other end, it doesn't feel light-hearted. It feels like betrayal. It creates a feeling of emotional distance. It breeds insecurity. It tells them that their partner is mentally and emotionally available to someone else, even if nothing official has happened. It doesn't matter if it's in person, over text, on social media, or even through subtle body language. Flirting, in this context, is emotional leakage. It's the energy that should be reserved for one person being poured into others for the sake of attention, validation, or ego. This isn't about controlling people or being overly possessive. It's about respect. Because when you're married, your flirtation isn't just about you. It affects your partner's sense of safety, worth, and security in the relationship. You made a decision to build a container of love that's exclusive, intimate, and safe. When you flirt with someone else, you're breaking that container. You're poking holes in the safety net your partner relies on to feel emotionally held. Even if a man doesn't act on the flirtation physically, the emotional consequences can be just as deep. Emotional intimacy is often the doorway to physical betrayal, and once that door is cracked open, the trust begins to erode. The partner starts questioning, why does he need that attention? Is he bored with me? Am I not enough? What's missing in our connection that he needs to look elsewhere, even in small ways? These thoughts don't just create pain, they create emotional distance. And once there's distance, the relationship suffers. Connection fades, conversations become guarded. The warmth between two people cools into cold politeness or silent tension. That's how flirting becomes destructive, quietly, slowly, but powerfully. Some people argue that flirting is just part of human nature, that it's instinctive and doesn't mean anything. But here's the truth: anything that involves secrecy, denial, or the need to hide it from your partner is not innocent. If you wouldn't feel comfortable doing it in front of your spouse, then deep down, it's inappropriate. Real integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And in relationships, real integrity means preserving emotional exclusivity, not just physical fidelity. When a man flirts while married, he's not just playing a game. He's signaling that the relationship boundaries are negotiable, that the emotional connection isn't being fully protected. That kind of behavior invites instability. It creates cracks that over time can become canyons. And whether he realizes it or not, he's slowly dismantling the trust that his marriage depends on. Flirting isn't just a moment of fun. In marriage, it can be the start of emotional infidelity, And emotional infidelity, more often than not, is what ends relationships, not just what's done physically, but what's done emotionally, quietly, and without accountability. A man who flirts while married is not simply acting on spontaneous attraction, he's revealing a lack of emotional integrity. Loyalty in a relationship isn't just about staying physically faithful, it's about consistency between your values, your words, and your actions. When someone flirts outside of their commitment, they're showing a split between what they claim to believe in and how they behave when they think no one is watching. That split is where emotional integrity breaks down. It's easy to excuse this behavior by saying things like, "Hey, he's just being friendly," or "he didn't mean anything by it." But meaning isn't always the issue. Impact is. And the impact of a married man flirting with someone else is real, whether it's subtle or overt. What he's communicating through that behavior is that he either doesn't fully understand the emotional boundaries of commitment, or he understands them and chooses to cross them anyway. Either way, it's not about attraction. It's about a deeper need for validation, attention, or power. Flirting, especially when it's repeated or intentional, isn't about connection with the other person. It's about ego. It's a quick hit of, "I still got it." It's a way to feel seen and admired, not necessarily because something is wrong in the marriage, but because something is unbalanced internally. He may be feeling insecure, overlooked, or even stuck in his identity within the relationship. Instead of doing the internal work to address those feelings or communicating with his partner, he seeks reassurance from outside. The problem with that is this: when you need external validation to feel good about yourself, you'll keep seeking it, regardless of your relationship status. And the more you seek it, the more you erode your own ability to build genuine emotional depth with your partner. Emotional integrity is about alignment. It's about acting in a way that reflects your commitment, even in private moments. A man with emotional integrity doesn't flirt because it feels good. He resists flirting because he understands what it costs. He knows the value of emotional safety. He knows that protecting the heart of his partner requires him to monitor his own behavior, even when it would be easy to dismiss it as harmless. He chooses loyalty not because someone is watching, but because that's who he is when no one is. When that integrity isn't present, the emotional environment in the relationship becomes unstable. The partner starts feeling confused, anxious, or not enough. She may not have the full story, but she senses the shift. The attention isn't as consistent. The connection feels interrupted. And in many cases, she begins to question herself, wondering if she's the problem, if she's imagining things, or if she's somehow caused him to behave this way. That's the emotional cost of a man who can't stay emotionally grounded in his commitment. He might not think it's a big deal, but to the person who feels the emotional drift, it's everything. The truth is, someone who lacks emotional integrity rarely sees the full impact of their actions because they're too focused on their own short-term gratification. They want to feel good, wanted, or interesting, and in the process, they break something sacred. And over time, those small betrayals add up. The flirting might never turn into a physical affair, but it still corrodes trust. It still changes the way a partner sees him. It still shifts the dynamic from safety to suspicion. Men who flirt while married may convince themselves they're still good partners because they haven't done anything serious. But loyalty isn't just about crossing a line, it's about not even going near it. It's about having the self-awareness and emotional maturity to say, "I don't need this external attention, because the relationship I've chosen is more than enough." When a man operates from that place, his behavior naturally reflects respect, not just for his partner, but for himself. Disloyalty rarely begins with physical betrayal. More often it starts in the mind with subtle shifts in attention, emotional openness, and unspoken desires. Emotional infidelity is the quiet root of most broken relationships. It's the build-up of small moments where someone chooses emotional connection with another person over their own partner. It's the wandering thoughts, the flirty exchanges, the lingering glances, or the conversations they wouldn't want their spouse to read. These may seem harmless in isolation, but together they create a dangerous emotional drift. When a man begins seeking emotional fulfillment from someone outside his relationship, even unconsciously, he's already crossed a boundary. He might still come home, still play the role, still say, "I love you," but a part of him is no longer fully present. That absence is felt. Emotional infidelity creates a space between two people, one where resentment, doubt, and insecurity begin to grow. And unlike physical infidelity, which can be traced to a specific event, emotional disloyalty is harder to identify, harder to confront, and often more difficult to heal from. It's invisible, but it's just as painful, sometimes more. What makes emotional betrayal especially destructive is that it often masquerades as something innocent, a friendship, a connection, someone who just gets them. The married man who flirts or shares intimate parts of his life with someone else may not even see it as cheating because nothing physical has happened. But that's a convenient story. Because when you're in a committed relationship, especially a marriage, the emotional investment you make in someone else can be just as damaging as a physical affair. Trust isn't just broken by bodies, it's broken by energy, focus, and emotional vulnerability given to someone who was never meant to hold it. It usually starts small. Maybe he's texting someone late at night. Maybe he's confiding in another woman about things he doesn't talk to his partner about. Maybe he's telling jokes, complimenting, seeking emotional reactions, or craving attention. It may not feel like a big deal to him, especially if he's not doing anything he defines as wrong. But emotionally, he's withdrawing from the relationship he vowed to protect. He's beginning to rely on someone else for the feelings he should be nurturing at home: connection, appreciation, desire, and understanding. This is why emotional infidelity is so slippery. It doesn't always look like cheating. It doesn't come with lipstick on the collar or late night calls that get caught, but it builds over time and erodes the foundation of trust. Eventually, emotional infidelity can make a partner feel like a stranger in their own relationship. It creates confusion, because everything may look fine on the surface, but the emotional warmth is missing. The attention feels divided. The intimacy starts to fade. Emotional betrayal often precedes physical betrayal, because once that emotional boundary has been crossed, it becomes easier to justify the next step. If you're already sharing your heart with someone else, laughing with them, flirting, confiding, then the physical moment can feel like an extension of something that already started. That's why it's so important to recognize emotional cheating early, not just in behavior, but in mindset. Where is your loyalty? Where is your emotional energy going? Who do you think of when something great happens? Who do you turn to when you're upset or lonely? A man may not realize how far he's drifted until the damage is done. He may not even see it as infidelity, but the partner on the receiving end feels it. They notice the shift. They feel the absence, and they begin to wonder why the connection feels harder, why affection seems less natural, or why they suddenly feel like they're competing for emotional space. That's the heartbreak of emotional disloyalty. It doesn't always come with a confession, but it leaves a wound just the same. Cheating, in any form, begins with a decision to invest emotionally where you shouldn't. A loyal heart doesn't just say no to physical temptation. It says no to emotional temptation too. Because real commitment requires more than just keeping your body at home. It means keeping your heart there too. When a married man flirts with other women, it's easy to mistake that behavior for confidence, playfulness, or even charm. Some women may feel flattered by the attention, believing it means they're desirable or that there's something special about them that captured his focus. But here's the truth that's harder to hear. It's not a compliment, it's a red flag. Because a man who flirts while being married isn't showing you how attractive you are, he's showing you how disloyal he can be. There's a subtle trap in receiving attention from someone who's unavailable. It can make you feel chosen. It can make you feel like you've become the exception to the rule, like somehow you've drawn out a desire in him that even his wife can't access anymore. But that narrative is dangerous. It turns a moment of poor integrity into a moment of false validation. The problem is that validation is built on the betrayal of someone else. And if he's willing to dishonor his own commitment to get that moment with you, then he's already telling you how little weight his word carries. A man who flirts outside of his marriage is not in control of his own values. His behavior is not about the person he's flirting with. It's about his need to feel something. Maybe it's power, maybe it's attention, maybe it's the thrill of breaking invisible rules without facing consequences. Whatever it is, that need speaks louder than his loyalty and louder than his respect for the relationship he's in. That's not charm, that's avoidance. That's someone who's emotionally irresponsible and disconnected from the cost of his actions. What often gets misunderstood is that this kind of man can still appear loving in his relationship. He may go home, hug his partner, pay the bills, and say, "I love you," like everything's normal. But loyalty is not measured by the moments when it's easy to be faithful. It's measured in those silent, unnoticed moments when you're given a choice to entertain temptation or to protect your relationship. Flirting, even when it doesn't lead to anything physical, is a choice to open a door that should remain shut. And when a man chooses that door, he's not proving that he's magnetic. He's proving that he's willing to risk someone else's emotional safety for his own ego boost. There's a painful irony in all of this. The very behavior that makes him seem bold and desirable to someone new is the same behavior that would devastate the person who actually trusts him. He's not showing emotional courage, he's hiding from emotional depth. A man who flirts while married isn't willing to face the real work of keeping a relationship alive. He's not addressing what's lacking in his marriage, not taking ownership of his role, and not doing the internal reflection required for real intimacy. Instead, he's escaping into the attention of others, into the illusion of being wanted, without the responsibility of staying present. This is why it's not a compliment, because when you're on the receiving end of that flirtation, you're not being elevated. You're being used. You're being pulled into a dynamic that already lacks trust and self-respect. The moment might feel exciting, even meaningful, but it's coming from a place of emotional chaos, not clarity. He's not choosing you for you. He's choosing the escape you represent from whatever he's unwilling to face in his own life. Women need to remember that the way someone treats others is the most honest preview of how they'll eventually treat you. If he's willing to flirt with you while he's committed to someone else, then he's already rehearsing how he would behave in the future if you were the one he was committed to. You're not witnessing something special. You're witnessing his lack of discipline, his inability to stay rooted in integrity, his emotional immaturity disguised as connection. Being pursued by someone married is not something to romanticize. It's not a story of forbidden love or a signal that you're irresistible. It's a warning sign that this person cannot be trusted to honor the sacred spaces they've promised to protect. And if they can't be trusted in those spaces, then it doesn't matter how charming, attentive, or passionate they seem. They've already shown you everything you need to know. Loyalty is often misunderstood as limitation. Some people see it as a cage, something that keeps them from expressing themselves freely, from having fun, from exploring their desires. But real loyalty in a relationship, especially in a marriage, isn't about restriction. It's about depth. It's about building something so secure, so emotionally safe, that neither person has to constantly question where they stand. It's about choosing one person, not just once, but over and over again, even when life changes, even when temptation appears, even when things get hard. When a man can't stay loyal, it's usually not because he's lacking options. It's because he's lacking emotional maturity. A loyal man doesn't stay faithful because he doesn't have the chance to stray. He stays faithful because he understands that real connection is built on trust. He knows that playing with someone's heart just to feel powerful is a sign of weakness, not strength, and he values the bond he has with his partner more than he values the ego boost of new attention. A mature man realizes that when he flirts with someone else while in a committed relationship, he's not just disrespecting his partner, he's robbing himself of the chance to build true intimacy. Because loyalty isn't just about physical exclusivity. It's about emotional focus. It's about showing up fully with honesty, consistency, and presence. And you can't do that when part of you is seeking validation from outside your relationship. Loyalty brings depth because it allows both people in the relationship to feel emotionally safe. When you know your partner is loyal, not just in words but in actions, you can open your heart, you can be vulnerable. You can grow together instead of guarding yourself. Disloyalty, even in the form of harmless flirting, creates a lack of emotional security. It sends the message that your connection isn't sacred, that attention can be divided, that love is fragile. And over time, that message erodes the foundation of the relationship. On the other hand, when a man commits fully, when he chooses depth over distraction, he creates something that many people never experience. A real emotional bond, one that isn't dependent on constant reassurance, one that doesn't need external excitement to feel alive, one that's built on respect, emotional discipline, and mutual growth. That kind of love doesn't burn out easily because it's not fueled by fleeting attraction. It's rooted in something far more powerful: devotion. It takes emotional strength to remain loyal in a world full of options. It takes maturity to value long-term connection over short-term thrill. It takes self-awareness to realize that loyalty is not the absence of desire, but the conscious choice not to act on it. Real love doesn't require perfection, but it does require presence. And presence is impossible when someone is emotionally divided. When a man is loyal, his partner doesn't have to look over her shoulder, decode his texts, or question his intentions. She doesn't have to fight for his attention because it's already being given freely. That emotional safety allows her to relax into the relationship. It allows her to show up in her full feminine energy, unguarded, unafraid, and unshaken. Because she knows that he's not looking elsewhere. He's not half in, half out. He's rooted, solid, committed. Not just with his words, but with his energy. This kind of loyalty isn't a burden. It's a gift. It gives both people the space to evolve without fear of abandonment. It gives the relationship the strength to withstand challenges. And it allows love to grow deeper, more fulfilling, more real over time. Because when both people feel safe, they show up more honestly, they communicate more clearly, they desire each other more freely. Not because they're afraid to lose one another, but because they're secure enough to fully enjoy what they've built. Loyalty isn't about control. It's not about following rules or ticking boxes. It's about choosing the relationship even when no one else is watching. It's about showing up when it would be easier to drift. It's about saying, "I'm here," not just with your presence, but with your choices. Because the depth you crave in love can only be found in the kind of loyalty that values emotional intimacy more than momentary excitement. If a man is married and still flirting, it's not a harmless mistake. It's a reflection of who he is when no one's watching. It's not about you being irresistible. It's about him being emotionally undisciplined. Loyalty isn't just about staying out of someone else's bed. It's about honoring someone else's heart. The man who flirts while committed is showing you his values loud and clear. And if you're wise, you won't confuse that for charm. Because real connection, real love, and real commitment don't come from divided attention. They come from depth, integrity, and the quiet power of emotional loyalty. Choose the kind of love that doesn't make you question your worth. Choose the kind of man who makes loyalty look effortless because he knows anything less is never enough.